Good morning, everybody. My name is Marissa Arnold. I am a broker and manager with RE/MAX Crown Realty in Sudbury. I'm also your Northern Director for OREA, as well as Vice Chair of this year's YPN committee. My notes just fell 2 seconds, and I'll go get them. All right, so I'm thrilled to be here to learn from the following 4 people who are truly acing it in the social media marketing and video game and using social media to their advantage in their business. We have an hour for this panel discussion today, so please ask any questions in the chat bar, and I will make sure to ask as many of them as I can, given that we still have time. Today, sitting on our panel, we have Vanessa Barker, who is a broker with Lepage Signature Realty. We have Justin Bock, who is a sales representative with Lepage J&D Division. We have Kenneth Laroza, who's a director of broker relations with Zillow, and James Milonas, who is your chair of this year's OREA's Young Professionals Network. So good morning, everybody. I guess we'll kick things off with our first question. I'll direct this at all of you. Why do you think social media videos are becoming increasingly important? Who wants to kick us off?
Yeah, I think because we can hit a large amount of targeted audience in a very short window for next to no money.
Okay, anybody else want to add to that?
One of the things that I'm a big fan of video, and the reason why I think it's taking up a lot in terms of our businesses is that we have a chance to, I hope you guys can hear me. With video, you have the ability to actually show who you are in terms of your personality. Being able to show your consumer base, your client base, a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your personality, gives you the opportunity to gain a little bit of trust in the online world, which is really a big part of getting the referrals that you need in real estate. So I feel like with video, you have a lot more opportunity to create a relationship with people online.
Okay, Vanessa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a great way to be face to face with your audience, and but do it all at once. So like James said, like Kenneth said, it's just a great way to get that one-on-one without needing to get that one-on-one. So you're not making individual calls, and of course you still should do all of that, but this is a great way to show people that you're busy with real estate, what your personal life is like, so that they can feel like they have a connection to you, that they can trust you, and that they feel like they really do know you, and then they'll be more likely to work with you. So I think in that way, it's just a great way to build a connection with your audience.
Okay, so this is a bit of a personal question for me. I feel huge jitters when I have to get in front of the camera and film something. So how do you get through that? How do you, pardon? Over the jitters and the embarrassment, because I don't love being in front of the camera. So what do you do to combat that?
I can go. I think originally when I said I wanted to do video, I was so nervous about what people would think, saying the right things, not like stuttering over my words, or it just not being received well, or not being at a professional level, you know, like perfectly cut and edited. And I think that you really have to get over that, and you just have to do it. So perfection is not what you're looking for, but execution is what you want, and consistency. People will respect you for just doing the video and giving them content and value. So I think the biggest thing is you just have to get over yourself. You are who you are, and people who are following you want to see that, and people who don't want to see that will just not follow you. So I think that was the hardest thing, but you just have to get over yourself. It was hard, but.
So how do you decide what to post and what to say, and how do you decide on the content of your video?
Planning it out. I think having a content calendar is the best thing you can do for your business. The same way you have a marketing calendar for a listing, photos on Tuesday, staging on whatever the case is. You have to have a content calendar for your social media, whether that's posting or video, whether that's TikTok or Instagram. You need to have something to hold you accountable to plan out. And the easiest way to start is remember that the consumer isn't all that smart. You have to teach them. What are the five steps of buying a home, right? What are the 10 things you can do to make your property more appealing to buyers, right? So it's little things like that. You're dropping hints, you're dropping education. And at the end of the day, you're becoming the authority figure of your market segment, your neighborhood, the type of product you move. And at the same time, like Vanessa said earlier, throwing in personal aspects makes you real. Nobody wants to see just listed and just sold all the time. They want to see more about you.
Okay. So how often do you guys recommend posting video?
I schedule mine now, mainly because if I don't, I will forget to do so. I try to do one once every other day, so 3 times a week in terms of video. One of the things that no matter what you do, I'm always a big advocate of at least being consistent in what you're trying to do. The worst is, sending out a video or putting up a video and then not doing anything on your social media for another 6 months. It's great if the content is great, but if you don't do anything for for a consistent time frame, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And especially with social media, everyone's attention span is pretty low when it comes to these things. You're scrolling through it very quickly, so you may be seen, but it may be gone very quickly. So you want to have whatever you're doing consistent, and I try to do mine once every 3 days, so 3 times a week.
Okay, that's a super good point. You touched on attention span. So given that people's attention spans are generally pretty short, how long do you recommend any video to be when you're posting? And is that app specific or?
So I wouldn't say it's app specific. I think it has to be content specific. So if you're doing a market update, Vanessa's done a really good job with, her Monday minutes, where she can bang out what she needs to say in the first 15 seconds. Because I don't know about her clientele, but on my client base, they're done after 15 seconds. So I want to make sure that the punch point is in that first little glimpse, or something that's going to hook them to bring them in. Like when you walk by a store window, they got that really good sale going on, they draw you into the back of the store. It's like you want something to have them there to stay longer term, right? So maybe it's a way to hook them in of like, do you want to know what the secrets are? Blah, 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 right? So you're giving that hook to watch longer so they stay there to your video. But if you want to bang it out real quick, throw 15 seconds together and you're good.
Okay. Can we talk about accountability now? So how, James, you mentioned time blocking and scheduling it in and making sure you have a content calendar. How do you hold yourself accountable when other things tend to take priority?
So for me, it's all about realizing that my social media makes me money. I don't door knock, I don't cold call, I don't open house, I don't flyer, I don't farm, I do social media. And that makes me money. So knowing that I am not posting a video or a post, that's costing me money 120 days from now. So that is my accountability. What I've done with other agents to help them is I've scheduled it in their calendar. So the same way like you would have a listing appointment at 9 a.m., your 8 o'clock notification is your post. So that's either if you have it ready, post it. If you don't have it ready, spend the next 20, 30 minutes filming it, writing it, editing it, whatever the case is, and get it done. That's your accountability.
Okay. Does anybody else want to add to that?
I can add to that. For me, because I just found when I started social media just totally overwhelming, and I know a lot of people feel that way. James puts out so much content and it's amazing, but I know that can probably, when you're starting out, seem a little bit overwhelming. So my goal in January was that I was going to do my Monday Market Minute every Monday, always do a story, and try and post 1 to 2 other times on my feed every week. And I was going to start from there and then work on improving my video quality and improving the frequency in which I do posts. So I think do what you can handle, but make sure it's part of your marketing and business building plan, because then that will keep you accountable. And I would say I don't get totally new business from social media, but from the leads that I have and that I acquire with doing other things, they follow me and the people I know follow me. And so I get referrals because they're constantly watching what I'm doing.
Touching on what they just said, it's actually really important for people to realize it's not going to generate business almost immediately, right? I used to teach everyone that what you do today results in business in the next 8 to 10 months. So if you're going to create content, you have to be consistent. You have to be able to do it. And that holds you accountable, because you have to understand that in 10 months, what you did in June will actually end up giving you business, but you won't actually be able to track it most of the time because they're following you on Instagram. They see you. People don't tend to make a decision on buying or selling real estate immediately. They don't just think of the idea and then buy. They think about it, they mull over it, and it takes them a large amount of time to do so. So with you being on top of their feed on a regular basis, they're being reminded of you, and eventually they turn into a client. So it's a lot harder for people to keep themselves accountable if you don't see something right away. But if you remember to do things now, and if business will turn up in the next 10 months, then it gives you a little bit easier understanding that, it's going to get to somewhere. Whereas a lot of people, put up a week of intensive social media videos and then don't see any business out of it and stop doing it. James has been doing what he's been doing for years, and it's created his business. So that's kind of the idea behind it is, it's not going to create business immediately. So just be consistent on it and remind yourself that it's going to result in business in the next 10 months. It's going to get that contact, and business isn't necessarily a sale, right? Business might be a person contacting you, reaching out to you and saying, hey, I have a question. That's 10 months from now, but that's more business than you're going to get in the next, if you don't do it. So it's important to remember that part.
I've been able to track, not to the post specifically, but roughly the content that in 120 days from a certain post, I'll either be getting a buyer lead, a seller lead, or a paycheck, depending on the post. So like Ken said, it's all about being consistent. You have to do this daily. It's not instant gratification, right? You might even be the type of agent who will never do a deal from social media, but it's giving you that back end validation. The same way I will never get a deal from my website. To me, that is my online business card. At the end of the day, the more places your people can find you, the better it is for your pocketbook.
Awesome. So do you guys come up with a bunch of, do you say pick a day, come up and film a bunch of content and then just have it ready to post whenever you feel it's necessary? Or do you just film content as you post?
I'll jump in if no one wants to. So for my Instagram feed, I always have a plethora of posts waiting to go. For TikTok, I always have a content creator that I follow. And some days I will spend an hour filming 15, 20 different videos, and then I just have them done. Other days it's sporadic, where I'm in between appointments and I'm sitting in my car and I'll live answer people's questions. So for me, TikTok's a little more sporadic, but I do have a calendar that I follow. I always have a post ready to go. So it's not like I'm in the dark of what do I post today, or I don't have the content ready. It's already done for me.
Awesome. And Vanessa, with your Monday minutes, do you get those ready ahead of time?
I don't, because I do weekly stats. So I'm pulling the stats Sunday night, and then Monday morning, it's like the very first thing I do is I film the video, and then I edit it quickly, and then I post it. So that's something you can't really do, but it's definitely part of my schedule. I know I wouldn't do it if it wasn't there. And the reason why I did Monday Market Minute is because I knew that I had to do it on Mondays, so it would keep me accountable no matter what. Like I can't say, oh, I'm going to do it on Tuesday, I'm going to do it on Wednesday. No, it's a Monday Market Minute. You got to do it on Monday. So that was the biggest thing. I'm been dragging my heels on doing a full content calendar like James has been doing. I think that the Monday Market Minute has worked really well by planning it out. So I know if I actually pre-planned posts, I would be more consistent with that as well.
Okay. And so Ken, I had a look at your social media a little bit the last couple of days. How did you decide on the motivational content that you post?
So a lot of the times,
I love
for me,
it. I love it, by the way.
so a lot of it was actually for me. So the idea was for me to keep myself on track. I read a few books, and one of the most important things for me in terms of living is to be happy, right? And so one of the things that I realized that what makes me happy is having a goal, having gratitude, and seeing that what you've learned throughout the week. And so I used to ask this to when I used to manage about 100 agents. I used to ask people these things because in this industry, we tend to get a little bit caught up in the here and now, the difficulties, the stresses that we're dealing with. And a lot of people would forget to focus on some of the things that would make them happy, right? So a lot of agents would tell me, well, I'm not doing well enough. I'm not doing great in terms of my business. I'm not doing as well as I should be. And so I'd have to break it down for them a lot of times and say, okay, well, this week, what are you focusing on? What are you trying to get done this week to get them moving forward? Because a lot of people would get caught up. Well, I didn't do a deal. Well, what makes you do a deal? What are you doing to get to across the finish line? And so I would help them break it down. I would also ask questions like, what are you thankful for? I think a lot of people forget to do that. A lot of times people forget to think about what you have to be happy for. And so what I wanted to do is give everyone a chance in my videos. I just literally tell people to take a moment when you see my video and think about one thing you're grateful for. It's important for your mental health in the long term. I mean, we're all in this industry and everyone here wants to do incredibly well, but all the money in the world is not really helpful if you're upset all the time. And so, we have a lot to be grateful for. And sometimes we're really focused on doing a deal and on to the next one, because that's what we have to do in this industry. We have to focus on something, finish it, and then keep going. Because if we don't do it anymore, we don't make any more money. So I'd like to remind everyone to take that moment to think about what they're grateful for. And then, the one thing you learned at the end of the week is just something that lets people understand that the last week that they've done, if they haven't done a deal, if they haven't hit any specific goals, they've learned at least one thing. The week isn't a waste, right? And so if you've learned one thing throughout the week, you've learned something, you've progressed your knowledge, your abilities. And if you do that every week for 52 weeks, you've learned 52 new things. And so it's really a way to keep people kind of grounded in this industry. I focus a lot of my content on real estate agents. And so a lot of the goal is to get people to understand that, our goal is to be successful. Our goal is to make a decent amount of money, if not much more. But, we have a lot to be thankful for. We have a lot to be grateful for. And you can be happy without doing that $6.2 million deal today, right? And so the goal is really to get everyone grounded, because we're all really focused on doing well, and we're not always focused on our own mental health.
Okay, and so what gets you the most likes, comments, traction? Is it specifically real estate related posts, or is it more lifestyle posts? And this question is directed to everybody.
I'll go ahead.
Okay. I would say for me, most of my comments are usually an engagement is through stories. And it's usually when I'm being the most candid, when I share pictures of my family, food, places I'm eating in Toronto, where I'm at, maybe sometimes like unpopular opinion I may have. And I just go on stories and just like put the video on my face, and I do a poll or questions about what I'm talking about. Those always give me the most engagement out of anything that I post, for sure, by far.
Same. A lot of personal posts get the best engagement. Also, really sexy decor posts. Like if you've got really cool listings that have great kitchens, great bathrooms, great closets, excuse me, those always get the best engagement and the best views.
I agree with the lifestyle. I mean, I don't focus again on real estate as much. I focused on a little bit more on helping agents. And so, you know, a lot more of my engagement is usually silly little posts and polls. I think the other day I asked about which one people prefer, sour cream and onion versus sour cream and bacon. And I got probably the most engagement there versus anything else that I've posted. It's also, like Vanessa mentioned, you know, people love seeing pictures of my kid, not much about me, but at the end of the day, you know, the goal is really to just interact with people. And my goal was really to just give people a little bit of an insight on my personality, who I am, so that we can build a relationship, whether I know them or not. And I've built a lot of relationships over Instagram that I probably would have never have done if I didn't do what I did.
Okay.
So the algorithm, sorry, Marissa, I want to touch on Ken's point here. The way the algorithm works is that post Ken made about sour cream and onion, sour cream and bacon, the people on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook might never see Ken's post again if they didn't interact with that. They might have just scrolled right by it. But the fact they took the time to either like, comment, share, or drop a vote on that, now Ken's content is pushed to the top of their feed constantly. So you have to remember that social media is a lot about continuous engagement, right? Getting people to interact with you. That way you're always top of mind. And you want to make sure that you're omnipresent with them. So you're not only on one platform, you have to be spread across. So when they see you, they're continuously going to see Vanessa Barker, Vanessa Barker, Vanessa Barker, Vanessa Barker on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever the case is. By using Ken's little story about chips, he could open up a whole other conversation about real estate that they don't know they're getting into.
All right. Which app do you like better and why?
Okay, I'll say it, TikTok. On average, I transact 15 to 20 deals a year from Instagram. This year, we're June, and I've transacted 18 deals from TikTok alone. So again, it's consistency, brand awareness, having a big following. And I like it because I can hit a really broad range of people, but a very micro-targeted niche, because the way the algorithm works, TikTok has one of the most sensitive algorithms that actually put your For You page in front of people, put you in front of people's For You page who are interacting with you, what you like, what you do, where you are, what you see.
Okay. Vanessa, what's your favorite?
My favorite is Instagram, mostly just because I think I've just gotten so used to it. I really love engaging, and I find I don't have a huge following on Instagram, about 1,400 followers, but I find that the people that are following me, I know almost every single one of them, either personally, or people I went to high school with that found me on Instagram, or people I went to elementary school, or people I had my first job with. I do have a TikTok account and I've made a couple of videos, but I definitely haven't been consistent with it. I find it totally overwhelming to be like super creative and create these like funny, engaging, like 15-second like bleeps that James is amazing at, but it's definitely on my list of things I'd like to incorporate into my social media, and maybe that will be my favorite. It is my favorite to scroll, so I totally get the hype. And I have a 15-year-old sister, and she's always like, V, why aren't you on TikTok? I see all these realtors on TikTok. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm so behind the times. So TikTok is probably where everything is headed in terms of real estate. For now, I'm a Instagram girl all the way. And maybe I'll try Reels before I hit TikTok, or you can do TikTok and post it on Reels, I believe too. But James, I'm sure, knows more about that than I do. But Instagram for now.
Okay. Magic question. How do we get more followers?
I think the three of us have said it 27 times now. Consistency.
Yeah.
And engagement. I think that, you know, if you engage with people who, I mean, I always used to see social media like a black hole talking into people. Like you need to be able to speak back, right? If someone posts, if someone comments on something, if you're, a large amount of my followers came from me actually going out of my way and engaging with people on a regular basis every day, and that's how people see you. They see that you exist and that they want to, and that you want to be able to speak to them, and they want to be able to speak to you. So I think a large amount of it is definitely consistency, being able to know that you are still posting. One of the things that I do suggest people do if you're doing Instagram is if you do a lot of stories, also do one post every once in a while, because the thing is, I noticed I don't follow stories as often because I can get drained into that rabbit hole of just keep watching videos. So I try to stay away from too much of the stories. But then if I follow someone and I notice that they don't have any posts since, let's say, April, I may feel like they've given up on the actual app. So, stories are great, and they may be very active on stories, but I don't look at them. So the idea is, if you're going to do it, at least cycle some of that in, because it then gives the person who does start to follow you, if you haven't posted a video recently, or they don't look at it in the story side, they know that you are still somewhat active in general, because it kind of anchors your page in Instagram. But yeah, definitely engaging with people. If someone posts or if someone comments on your comment, create a dialogue with them, ask questions. I think this is one of the things that a lot of people forget to do. It's just like, someone posts, is like, ask a question. Is there anything that, I can help you with? What do you think about my post? What do you like about it? And just try to create a conversation, because then people see that you're not just advertising. And I think that's where a lot of people forget to do, is they take social media and they just look at it as media as opposed to social. And I used to talk to people a lot about that, is if you're going to do social media, you got to do both parts. You create the media, but you also have the social aspect to it.
Okay, so I'm guilty of this. I don't know if it's right or wrong. Do we post the same content as a post and a story, or should the story differ from the post? Vanessa?
When I do a post, I share the post on my story, but I don't fully publish what I'm talking about in my post, because I want them to engage in my feed. So by me sharing the post in my story, I'm saying, go to my feed and look at the post, because then you have two different areas for them to engage with you. So you want the content on your stories to be fresh and different from those from your post, but you also want them to go to your profile, look at your post. Usually when they're there looking at your post, then they'll start scrolling your feed and liking other things. So you really want to drive people to go to your feed. You don't want them to watch the whole thing on your stories.
So here's a really great way to tie the two in together. If you had, I'm going to use Vanessa as an example, because I know Ken doesn't actively sell anymore. So if Vanessa and her business partner Lynn are, let's say that they have a new listing in the East York Triangle, the Golden Triangle, right? And they've put that little listing video on their actual feed. They can share that video to their story, but then tying into their stories, they can do restaurant tours. They can do where the schools are. They can do a walk through the park. There's so much they can do that, one, reaffirms their market share in their neighborhood, but two, sells the home without the video. Who cares about the house? You're buying that neighborhood. You are buying into that Golden Triangle for a reason, because you want to be able to walk to restaurants, you want to walk to school, you want to walk to the park. If you show people that, they're going to be so much more engaged to go in. And now they see that Vanessa knows the neighborhood. They just locked her in as that go-to for that pocket. So there's so many ways you can get creative with your stories.
I know a lot of people like to keep their profile, especially in Instagram, kind of clean, a specific kind of aesthetic to it. I do the same thing. So I usually use the stories for content that doesn't fit the look of my page. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but ultimately, if I want to do a video, if I want to do something that's outside of the aesthetic of my Instagram page, I usually do it in stories. So it's not necessarily the same thing on a regular basis. I don't usually I don't use the same content on both, but that's because I visually like the way it turns out, and it keeps me kind of sane.
All right, let's talk hashtags. What are they? How do you use them to your advantage? What should you do? Let's just talk about hashtags. Who wants to start?
Okay, I guess I'll jump back in here. I feel like this webinar was like made for me. So hashtags are a really great way to get exposure. So I've started doing a tiered approach to hashtags. So I always use the full 30. Instagram lets you use 30 regardless. And I use the first 5 as ones that are less popular, but still relevant to the topic. So if it's a Toronto home that I'm listing, it might be Toronto-based hashtag, Toronto ETH. Now that's a pretty popular one, but like something smaller that has less than 1,000 followers, right? And then the next tier will be something that has up to 10,000 followers. Then the next tier will have something up to 100,000 followers. And then the last section of hashtags will have something that's millions of followers. Because remember, people follow hashtags, right? So I want to tier it in a way so that post continuously shows up on everyone's feed, even if they don't follow me, because they're following that hashtag. So if you're following, I don't know, Toronto parks, and I put that as one of my posts on a beach's home, you're going to see that, right? Even if you're not following me, you're going to see that on your feed. So hashtags do work. If you have your Instagram account set up as a business profile or a creator profile versus a public profile, you can actually see your engagement of where the views of that post came from. Was it from the homepage? Was it from Explore? Was it from contact? Was it from hashtags? And as always, the hashtags will tell you how they're performing. So they work really well on Instagram. On TikTok, the same thing. You can use hashtags that are relevant to that post. Stop with the entire Toronto real estate. Everyone uses it. I find people from the suburbs always use Toronto real estate because they think it has really good exposure for them. It doesn't, right? It does not work. Please use hashtags that are relevant to that post. That makes sense. Don't put hashtag Toronto real estate on a video of your dog. Why?
So why do you place the most popular hashtags last and not first?
Again, it's a tiered approach, right? It's just the way I've structured it. And now if someone's looking at the post, they're not going to zoom in and see Toronto real estate right off the top. They're going to look at what the heck is I don't know, Toronto parks. Why is he posting Toronto parks, right? So you always want to use the ones that are going to be most visible at the front, and then the more popular ones at the bottom. It doesn't matter which way you do it. That's the way I've structured it. It's just aesthetically pleasing to me and my psychosis.
I don't use hashtags.
So how do you choose?
Sorry, just to chime in quickly, I don't use hashtags properly, probably, but I do target a lot of realtors because I that's where my focus tends to be in terms of mental health and education, and so a lot of people, I use hashtags to find realtors, and everyone uses Toronto Realtor. I don't know a single consumer who uses Toronto Realtor as a hashtag to follow, right? There's not. So we have to kind of understand what we're using the hashtags for. I use it to find people and for people to find me, because I know that people typically use, like James said, Toronto real estate. Every realtor uses that. So we use that. And so I use that to track other agents as well. And so it's the same thing for me, is I use something that I know my audience uses. I remember reading somewhere, and I've used to tell people to do this. It's like, if you're looking at specific neighborhoods, if you're working a specific neighborhood or a post or your listings in a specific neighborhood, find the posts, find the hashtags that are being used in that neighborhood by the locals. And at that point, use that, because that's what people are looking for, right? If they're looking for the beaches, use the beaches as a hashtag, because that's what they're looking for, right? When consumers are looking for something, they're going to look for something specific. They're not going to be like, all right, I'm going to look for Toronto real estate. Most of the time, they're going to get a bunch of realtors, and that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a specific neighborhood, Parkdale. They're looking for something that is specific to that what they're looking for specifically. So it's important to pay attention to what you're hashtagging. And I would say, like James says, is pay attention to being a little bit more focused on your hashtags, especially when it comes to the neighborhood that you're working with or your listing that you're putting up.
So how do you come up with which hashtags to use? Do they just come out of your head? Are there websites we can use? Fill us in.
This is going to sound fantastic. And sorry, Vanessa, I just have to say this. Using the search bar on any platform, just search them. Search what's relevant.
Yeah, I'm not the greatest at using hashtags. I use them every single post. I try and use 30. And what I had done to make it easier on myself is that I went into my notes on my iPhone and I did group 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I created a list of hashtags with different amounts of followers. So I use the smaller category ones that only have like 1,000 or 2,000 followers following, and then the millions and the in-betweens. And then I have like group one. Group 1 is one that I use. It has mostly real estate relevant, e-stroke relevant, and then our own personal hashtags that we've created. And we use those on the Lynn Group Instagram page for when we post real estate videos and posts. And then I have other groups for specific things, like I'm a mom who lives in Toronto, I'm a vegan, and I really would love to work with people that I can connect with. So depending on what I'm posting, I choose that group. So you can really pre-plan and have the list, and you just copy and paste them. You don't have to create like 30 hashtags every single time you do a post.
Anybody else? No? All right, next question. This comes from Tariq. What is your opinion on outsourcing your social media?
I'm going to jump in. Again, I use my social media to create a relationship with people, for people to understand who I am. I don't think I can hire anyone to post up more about me than I could. So I think that in creating trust and creating that relationship with people, outsourcing it is not really a good way to do so. I mean, yes, it creates the consistency, but it's your brand, it's your understanding, it's what you want people to get from you, and only you know that as best as you can. So I think outsourcing it, I've seen a lot of people hire and fire a large amount of social media people on a regular basis because it didn't match what they wanted. Only you know what you want on your social media page. Only you know the best way for people to connect with you. And I think doing it yourself is the best way to do so. And it's also the most cost effective. I mean, we're realtors at the end of the day, and we need to save as much as we can. Hiring someone to do something that you can pay, arguably the easiest and best way to do so is paying for a software and scheduling it like later. And that's maybe $100 for the year, probably more, I don't remember. But, doing that and scheduling that, at least it's your content, it's your stuff. The other thing is you still have to create content, right? Whether you hire someone to do so, you have to create content. If you're doing posts about yourself or you're taking photos, they have to be about you. So, you hire someone, they're still going to hound you to say, hey, I need images, I need content. And then you're now paying someone upwards to, 20,000 plus a year, depending on what you're paying them, for them to contact you to tell you to still do work. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's a great idea to outsource. I think everyone agrees.
James shaking his head no.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I outsourced in 2014, and biggest regret of my career, because the people that I had outsourced to, they were just dropping comments to get engagement and followers. And they had commented on someone who just lost their grandmother. They wrote a touching memory to their grandmother, and the person who was engaging for me wrote, "Cool post, can't wait to hear more." I was mortified, absolutely mortified. So I will never outsource anything, especially my social media. That's my brand. I have to be hands-on with it.
Vanessa, you look like you might have something to add.
I mean, I do know quite a few agents that do outsource, and I find that they have educational posts, and it's very, very professional and streamlined when you look at their feed, and you can tell that like a professional has created these posts and all the photos are professionally shot. But the one thing I notice is that the personal engagement is not as genuine, because it's never going to be unless you're the one posting and sharing stories. And I just find like I don't see those people's face in their stories. I don't get to see who they really, really are. But I think a lot of times it's the people who really don't feel comfortable in engaging in social media in that way, but they know that they still have to be on the platform, so they outsource it. But I think if you can do it yourself, you're gonna have more success with finding clients and building connections.
Just wanted to touch on that quickly. One of the things that is what Vanessa mentioned is really important is like a lot of people don't care to see everything perfect, right? We're really good at selling ourselves and making people, a lot of times in this industry, we like to make people think that our lives are perfect and everything is great and we're making tons of money. People want to connect with you and they want to know that you're not perfect either, right? So like, you know, your video can be sideways every once in a while. It shouldn't be, but it, you know, you can make it a little bit difficult, more normal and more natural than having everything perfectly shot, because everyone knows that you have a photographer when you're doing those things. Whereas, you know, if you're doing a selfie or if you're taking a quick video at the park, it makes things a lot more relatable. And I think a lot more people connect to that. Again, depending on your audience, it's also important to understand who your audience is. If your audience is more down to earth, then that's what they're looking for. If your audience is more of a posh audience, that's a different situation and you need to understand who you're targeting. But I think, you know, not everything has to be perfect. And I think that's where a lot of realtors think that I can't do this because it's not perfect. Your video is never going to be perfect. I kept every video that I started on Instagram. If you watch it, it's ridiculous. And it's probably the stupidest thing that you have. And it's probably gotten stupider as it goes along, but at least it's gotten more natural, right? And I think that you have to understand that not everything's going to be perfect. You shouldn't have to hire people every time to do a photo shoot. I do every once in a while, but that's only because I like to stroke my ego and have people take pictures of me once in a while, but that's about it.
All right, so pretty simple question. What do you post? Is it all personal? Is it all real estate? Do you post your just listeds versus just solds? What do you post?
Yeah.
So I feel like we answered this one earlier, but it's like I actually unfollow realtors that I followed in the past that post just listed and just sold constantly. If I have to scroll past the first 9 images on your feed to see what you look like, I'm not going to follow you. I don't care about your listing. I have access to the MLS. I can see it. I don't care to see it on your listing, right? So please don't spam us. The public wants to know who you're about. So I've built my brand as completely walls down, open, authentic. Everybody who follows me knows everything about me. I can walk into a listing appointment, sign it, walk out in 10 minutes because they know everything about it. I don't need to sell myself. So if you become more authentic with your social, you can do the same thing. Now, when it comes down to what should you be posting if you don't have a lot of business, right? Or you don't have a lot of experience, reverse the role. Pretend you are the consumer. If you're the consumer buying in today's market, what do you want to know? What do you need to know about bidding wars, deposits, multiple offers, no conditions? What happens if I put a no home inspection condition and there's a crack in the foundation? Who's liable, right? Educate the public on that. Talk about the contract. Break down a buyer rep agreement. I'm telling you, probably 95% of the people watching this right now do not know how to properly sell a BRA. And I'm guilty of that too, because I trust my clients. I don't always get them signed when I should, but I break it down with my people. And I've used that on my socials to explain to people what a BRA actually is. Use those tips and tricks, those tools, those things that we use daily to build your content.
One of the things that James mentioned is really big is, you have to be personable. You have to, people want to relate to you, but it doesn't mean you have to separate business either, right? Like, I know a lot about James, but I also know he's in real estate. Like it's not like he separates it. There's no clear line of real estate and personal. We're in real estate. Everything is business and everything is connected to everything that we do. So, you can talk about something that's important to you, something that's relatable to you, and then also talk about that it's connected to real estate. So that's a big thing that I think a lot of people kind of blur the lines. It's like, well, how much personal, how much business do you need to do? You can do both in the same post. People can know about who you are and what you do, because you know what they say is a picture has 1,000 words. Like it's, you know, you can say a lot in one picture. And I agree with James, like, you know, posting your listings, you know, I'm not entirely sure why I get why people do so. You know, the idea of saying, well, one, it's easy. It's super easy to do. It's, you know, I have something, and a lot of people want to say that, well, I'm busy. We're really good at telling people we're busy, but we don't really tell people about who we are. If you're brand new to this industry, you actually have a big benefit compared to myself, who've been in the industry for almost 2 decades. I don't know how it feels to be not a realtor anymore. It's been a long time since I've actually not worked in the real estate space. So, you know, you coming out of coming out as a consumer first and then becoming a realtor, you now have questions that you had previously. I don't remember the last time I had a question that didn't have an answer to it in my own head. So this is a good opportunity for you to say, okay, well, you know, you're probably like me, and yes, I'm new, but you have the same questions, and I have this level of understanding. This is what I've learned. This is what I can teach you. You know, it's also a part of the journey. You know, if you're new to this industry, showing your journey as you progress is awesome, because it's like a little documentary about your own life, right? And it gives you an opportunity to show content that's partially about your life, personal, and partially about your business. And so I think a lot of people would rather see that than saying listed, sold, because that's cool, but who are you?
Okay. So that sort of segues perfectly into the next question. Do you have a separate business page than you do a personal page? Do you cross post to both, or do you just have one and all of your content goes on that one?
I have a personal real estate account. It's Vanessa Barker Realty, but I post everything about my personal life on there. And then we have a team page that's the Lynn Group TO. It's strictly all our listing videos and real estate related, and anything Lynn, my partner, and I are doing together, community outreach and any events we put on, all of that's there, but I'll share it on my personal page. But I mix it all together. I was back and forth about it, but I think the biggest thing is you have to think about when you're on Instagram or TikTok and you're scrolling through, what are the things that you like to see? You don't want to be sold to. You don't want to see just sold constantly. Those aren't the things that people are engaging with. They don't care. And the last thing they want to do after work when they're scrolling in bed or whatever they're doing is to be sold to. They want to be entertained. They want to get to know you. They want to be given valuable content. So all of the ideas that James mentioned, of all these things, that information that we take for granted because we're realtors and we know, the average person, especially those who have never bought or sold, do not know anything about. They don't know about status certificates. They don't know about all the things you need to do to get ready for market if they've never sold their home before. But then they also really want to know about your kids and what you ate for dinner and where you're going tonight in Toronto and what there is to do during a lockdown and how crappy it's been for you because you're working full time and homeschooling someone. They want to see that they can relate to you, that you're having just as shitty a time through this lockdown as they are. And I think blending your business and personal together, just like you do in real life. I mean, we work 24/7. We don't work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So mixing it, I think, is the best way.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken, go ahead.
I like Vanessa, I had a difficulty for a very long time. I tried to determine whether or not I wanted a personal and a business page. I eventually separated the two, and the main reason I have a personal page is because my partner and I have decided that my son's face is not going to be public. And so my personal page is really very close friends and family, and it has a lot more of my son on there. Apart from that, everything else I do majority of the time is on my business page. So a lot of my posts are on there, a lot of my stories are on there. If I want to interact with people, it's usually on there. My personal page is really more meant because it's a family page, and I keep that separate for my own personal understanding of it. But that's what I've done.
And for me, everything's under James in the City. It's one account across the board. And you get everything from like my real estate to tips to tricks to shopping, right? To my insane wine obsession. Like it's all in, because I want people to know everything about me. And that's why I've been able to, like I said 5 minutes ago, I can narrow down my listing appointments, my buyer appointments in 10 minutes, because I don't have to sell myself, because I spent 10 years building this brand for people to know everything about me. And it's funny, because I'll walk into an appointment, and it happens probably once a month, where the seller is like, first question out of their mouth is, how's Scott, my partner? Say, show him on my social, but are those shoes new? Because people know I have a shoe obsession. So they're always commenting on my shoes, are they new? And it's a really great icebreaker that just lets the conversation flow. So having one account being a good balance of personal and business and being authentic will do wonders.
All right, so we only have a few minutes left. There's a few more questions in the Q&A. I thought maybe we could roll through them fairly quickly. Do you use any programs to edit your videos before you post?
I just use iMovie for my intro and outro, and then I can add text. But that's as far as I've gotten, and it's so easy to use, and it's already on your iPhone. It takes me 2 seconds. That's all I use.
Okay.
So for my video, I actually use Capwing, Canva, and YouTube. One of the reasons why I do that is because I need the captions. I'm, as a father, one of the things that I was using was noticing was I watched a lot of video, but with my son sleeping, I don't want him to hear it. I don't want him to know that I'm watching something. So a lot of times my videos had to have caption because I need to see what's going on. And so the videos the software I used was YouTube, Capwing, Kapwing, and Canva. And Capwing really, so YouTube generates the captions for me for free, like it does automatically. Capwing then changes the size of the captions, and then I put it onto Canva so that it looks somewhat professional or somewhat usable. So I do everything. It takes about 10-15 minutes to do every video, but it's completely free. And so for me, that's a big part of my business, is making, or my videos, is making sure that there's captions, because personally, I needed to watch a lot of my videos. And it was one of the pains, watching a lot of these videos, going through scrolling through them and not being able to read anything what everyone is saying.
Okay.
And for me, I do most of my videos on TikTok because I can actually play with their effects. And I've used Splice a lot recently, where you can have really cool transitions. So if you're doing like a social media video on a property, you can splice yourself into the rooms like very quickly. You snap your fingers and you're in the next room, like those little quick transitions. It takes some getting used to, but once you get the hang, it's pretty easy. And the one thing I always use, which I don't have on me right now, because that's why I look so dark, is a ring light. I always have good lighting. Good lighting makes for the best video. You could have an amazing video and it's dark, no one will see it. Make sure you have a good ring light.
Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on sharing properties that you're not the listing agent for on TikTok or IG? For example, showing an amazing condo on your TikTok that you saw on showings. Do you clear it with the listing agent before you post?
Officially, I would suggest that you have to ask permission to do so. Compliance wise, it's best to do so. Arguably, you can contact the broker of record to get that confirmation to do so. I would highly suggest not putting any videos up without getting approval to do so. And if you are doing any videos of a property, be careful with the privacy stuff as well. If there's photos out, you don't want people's faces in your videos. There's a lot of people who leave their, I mean, you shouldn't, but they don't depersonalize a property. And if you have a photo of someone's kids in your video and that is now being shared, and the owner hasn't, heard about it or isn't aware of it, there might be some pretty big problems with privacy law as well as RICO. So be concerned with that.
Yeah, actually, so Ken and I, we sat at Treb's YPN a couple years ago, and Vaughn Palmer, who is the head of governance for Treb, said along the same things. As long as there's no identifiable features of the home, of the family, and you've cleared it, you should be fine. I find the best things for me, if you're gonna be at a condo listing, for example, I think it was Chloe who asked that. Forgive me if that's not the right name. One of the best things I find for condo listings on TikTok is the view. If you post that view, people eat it up like candy out of a piñata, because they want to know what that view is, what the building is, what the price is. So views you can get away with because you could be on any balcony. You can be on the rooftop, no one's gonna know. Anything, to Ken's point, inside, clear it with the LA or the BOR.
Same with amenities. There's always a good, it's, again, if as long as no one's in the using the amenities, taking photos of the amenities, usually is pretty good. Same with the lobby. If it's a beautiful lobby, then those are great photos to take of. But if it's internally, or if it's identifiable, if it's it's a free old house, taking a picture of someone's front door or front of the house with the address can be problematic. So I'd be concerned with that.
All right, so it is 11 o'clock. I think we are going to wrap things up. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you for allowing me to not bomb my first time moderating. I appreciate all your patience. Have a lovely day, everybody. The webinar will be, it was recorded. It will be emailed to you. It will also be shared on OREA's YouTube page. So have a lovely day, everybody.